Hi and welcome to my tutorial. My name is Sarah Alderson and I work under Alderson Designs. I'm a knitwear designer and I also teach classes, and in this tutorial I'm going to go through a corrugated ribbing stitch, in particular though doing a continental style, so that means having both yarns in my left hand. So corrugated ribbing is really pretty. It's a rib stitch, so it combines knit stitches with purl stitches, like any other type of ribbing, and you can do it any length, so 1 and 1 or 2 and 2, 3 and 1, whatever you want to do. But what it does is it gives an effect, so all the knit stitches are done in one colour and all the purl stitches tend to be done in a different colour. So this is my Norrie jumper from my Elven Reckoning book, and it's got a corrugated ribbing around all the cuffs. There's also one on my belly, but I won't show you that. So it's got an I-cord cast on in this one, but if you can see, all the knit stitches are done in the orange yarn Parkin by Barrow Titus, and then all the purl stitches are in the blue yarn, which I think is Ekup. It's really nice yarn to work with, but it's this effect that it gives of stripes in the ribbing, but with all the knit stitches in one colour and all the purl stitches in the opposite colour that you're using. So I think it looks really nice as edges on colour work. It helps join patterns in. It's just really pretty. Now I knit continentally. All my yarn I tend to hold in my left hand, and I tend to do that unless I'm doing stranded colour work, and it's a row where you've got to use a lot more of one colour than you are of the other. So it works really well if you've got a fairly number of equal stitches, like in corrugated ribbing, where I'm going to show you one where I'm doing 2 stitches in one colour, 2 purl stitches in the opposite. If you're doing, say, you've got 10 stitches one colour and then just 1 stitch in a contrasting colour, it tends to pull too much yarn of the contrasting colour through, so it makes the floats a bit too baggy, so I tend to then switch to doing it in both hands. But this tutorial is about doing corrugated ribbing continental style with both colours in your left hand. So I'm just going to turn it round and show you what I'm doing. Right, so I've got my stitches cast on, and I'm using a magic loop technique. Just make sure I'm not twisted at all there. So when I'm holding my yarn in my left hand, I take the yarn that's attached to the needle, and I always use the needle because that means I'm not wrapping it around my fingers the wrong way. I take it over the top of my little finger, round behind the little finger and in front of it again, and also in front of my ring and middle finger, behind and over the top of my index finger, and leave about 2 inches between the yarn and the needle, between my finger and needle. And that means the yarn's there ready for me to use. I can pull it around and it will slide through my fingers, but not too loosely that I can't grab hold of it and it keeps moving out of the way. When I'm using 2 colours in the same hand, I do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to give myself a bit of a tail with the pink. So I go in front and behind and over around my little finger, then in front of my ring and middle finger, behind and over the top of my index finger. So it forms that pattern. Again, got a couple of inches, move that tail out of the way. And then I'm going to turn the pink yarn round. And this means that there's a gap between the 2 yarns, they're just crossed over. And means I can use them quite easily without having to try and pick up one without the other getting both caught on the needle. So, corrugated ribbon, I'm going to do a 2x2 rib. And the 2 knit stitches are going to be in the pink. So I do 1 stitch, 2 stitch, so you just put the needle in from right to left, open up the stitch, go around behind the yarn at the back of the finger and pull it through and slide the original stitch off the needle. Now for my pearls, I'm going to bring the yarn in front, so this is a normal continental pearl. I just bring the silver yarn in front, because if you bring the purple one too, it means that the purple one will strand across the front and you don't want to see that. So 2 pearl stitches in the silver. So I use my middle finger just to hold the silver yarn out of the way. So I just bring that yarn down. Then I can do 2 more knit stitches, so round behind the pink yarn and off, in, round behind the yarn and off, and then 2 more pearls. So just bring the silver yarn in front, and if it's been a bit awkward, just use my middle finger again to push it down. and off. 2 more pink stitches. Now this time I'm going to do a Norwegian Pearl. So you keep the yarn behind the needle for this pearl, but your needle goes behind it, through the middle, round behind the silver yarn, back through the middle, out and off. So I do that again, so you keep the yarn behind, round, back, through and off. And then 2 more pink stitches. Then I've got 1 pearl left to do. Oops, missed it then. It slipped in front. It's got to stay behind the needle for this to work. And there you go, you got corrugated ribbing. So you've got 2 stitches, knit stitches in the pink and 2 pearl stitches in the silver. And you just keep going like that around. And most corrugated ribbing you'll end up doing in the round anyway, because colour work's generally a bit easier that way round. And if you keep going, you find that you get this effect. I'm going to show you my sleeve, where you get a stripes effect vertically, which look really neat because all the knit stitches are one colour and all the pearl stitches are another. So that's how you do it with both yarns in the same place, in the same hand. So the important thing is to wrap it around your hand, so you've got some tension, and both tensions need to be equal, so I wrap them both around together, and then turn one the opposite way around in your finger so that the 2 yarns are separate, and this means you can pick up either yarn with your needle without getting caught up in the other yarn. It works well for things that both are going to use the yarn the same way, because as you pull it through, if you just pulled one through, I don't know if you can see, but it pulls the other yarn through with it at the same time, and this makes it quite floaty and you end up with too much of the contrasting colour in your hand, it's not quite as easy. But anything like corrugated ribbon, a lot of Shetland Fair Isle stitches are quite even in their colour works, so I use it for virtually all of that, unless there's long stretches of one colour and only short stretches of another, and you don't want to get too much fabric behind, or you're doing some float trapping. It's not quite as simple. But certainly for corrugated ribbon, it's my preferred method. Thank you, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I'll see you again soon.